When you have guests on, and I've seen you talk to, some of these defund the police people and the Black Lives Matter people who, again, I watched that interview and it felt like he was just regurgitating ideas that he had heard because there were no conclusions at the end.
Right.
But how do you prepare for those guests? And then is there a point where you're like, I'm not going to push it too far? It feels like you don't try to completely crucify them and annihilate them. It feels like you're like, I want to win with logic, but also you don't mind getting a little bit combative.
Yes. Well, that guy, Gary McFarlane, was good because I let him just kind of hang himself, really.
True.
Because the more he spoke, the more ridiculous he sounded.
Right. But you're not always that lucky.
So you're not always that lucky. I can sometimes get irritable with people, more generally on the phone than in person, although I did get quite irritable with Femi. You might have seen that video where he came into our old studio before we moved into News UK's building.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I got kind of gnarly with him was partly because he insisted on coming into the studio. And on that particular day, I had quite an inexperienced producer on. And unbeknownst to me, when she had called him up to come on, he had apparently said, "Oh, I'm not far away, I'll just pop in." And this is the kind of thing that people like Femi does, because Femi, to me, is an absolute nobody, right? He has no real reason to have an opinion on anything other than the fact that he's out there kind of spreading this EU bullshit to say that, the EU's great and how dare you not want to be in it because this is all the great benefits of it, right? And so suddenly he turns up and I'm like, "What are you doing here?" He said, "Oh, I thought I should come in." And I took her to I said, "Look, you don't tell people, you don't let people come in unless you invite them. Unless I invite this guy in, he's not welcome."
Right.
And she said, "Well, I can't really tell him to go away."
Because it gives him more of a platform if he's in studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because also, generally speaking, I think in terms of psychology, it's easier to be nice to somebody if they're sitting in front of you.
Right.
Or more difficult to be nasty to them.
Right.
Unless you're me.
Yeah, unless you're
because I don't care.
Right.
Anyway, so I said to him, "Well, you're going to regret coming in, I'm afraid. So we'll see you in 5 minutes." And he came in and I just went for him. And of course, what he didn't, he started off with the usual trotted out nonsense of, well, the great thing about the European Union is we've had peace in Europe, ever since the Second World War.
And you gave him the history lesson.
And I gave him the Bosnian history lesson.
Right, which he didn't know much about.
Which he obviously knew nothing about.
Right.
And then I said to him, so how many wars did we have between 1945 and 1973 when the EU was formed? And he was kind of like, "Pardon, what?" I said, "Well, how many wars?" And he said that the EU was responsible for bringing peace to Europe. He said, I don't think there were any wars. I said, right. So from 1945, when there was no EU, to 1973, when it was formed, no wars. So what exactly did you need to make peace for? And he just didn't know where to go. Right. And I was quite rude to him and I shouted him down. And there's still quite a lot of people that one's been seen by, I think, nearly 500,000 people now, which I know is not much compared to what you guys do. But we were pretty proud of it. And he said...
You also have to be careful because you don't want to be that guy every time. Or
well,
do
no.
you?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's the same when you go about, people kind of want me to rip up The Guardian. But if I did it every day, it would be boring.
Yeah.
So now I do it sort of sometimes surprisingly, sometimes not. You're right, because I think it's all about different speeds, We have a laugh. I mean, there's a certain person who I don't name who works on LBC at the same time as me, who only has one speed. He's just miserable. He doesn't make people laugh. He's not funny. He looks like he's having a terrible time. It's like he's being paid very well. He lives in a nice big house in West London. What's the problem? Whereas we make people laugh, and we can have a laugh, but yet we can still do the serious stuff,